They gave us a map and called it history. But we were already here before the cartographer arrived. Sitting on this red clay like scripture, learning from what the soil remembers. Miss Dorothy on the corner with her hands like ancient tools. 3 generations of cotton and she still makes biscuits at 5. Her granddaughter asks about the letters, the ones they burned in '61, so nobody could trace the route. The welfare form asks for identification, but it don't know how to read the kind of ID that lives in their hands. Raymond Coates worked the mill for 32 years, and when it closed, they sent a letter on a Tuesday. Said thank you for your service, like he was a soldier. Like the years weren't supposed to mean something more than severance. We don't talk about what was taken, we talk about what we built after the taking. The roots don't ask permission to grow. They find a crack in the concrete and they go. This is what we learned before we learned to read the signs. What the ground kept after everything they tried to take. What we carried forward when the map ran out of road. Delia May's porch is 3 steps in the rocking chair, and everything you need to know about this county in one afternoon. She'll tell you about the '68 flood like she's describing a Tuesday, because for her people it was just another Tuesday of almost. The school bus route changed in '83. Stop going past the tracks where the government said progress lived. Keisha knows the short route and the long route, and which one you take tells everything about what you think your time is worth. The library on 5th was closed on budget cuts in '91, but Mrs. Henderson still brought books and grocery bags on Thursdays. The world doesn't document what it cannot monetize, and we were never meant to be a line item in somebody's ledger. The roots don't ask permission to grow. They find a crack in the concrete and they go. Keisha took the long route and memorized every house on the way. What Mrs. Henderson carried in those grocery bags was more than paper. It was the syllabus they refused to build a building for. I keep seeing what the South looks like from the outside. Somebody's definition of back with something slow, something left behind, but what you call slow, we call delivery. What you call silence, we call testimony building in the chest. There's a tradition here of knowing before speaking, or watching the weather 3 days before you plant, of carrying grief like a tool, not a womb, because a womb demands attention, and attention was never guaranteed down here. The men who built the courthouse never planned for us to walk through the front, and now we walk through the front, and we know what the floor knows, what the walls absorbed before the paint was fresh enough to cover. This is for every story that starts with they didn't have much, and then somewhere that map didn't imagine. For every Delia May on every porch in every county, bear witness to what group where they said nothing could. The concrete was never the final word. The roots don't ask permission to grow. They find a crack in the concrete and they go. Raymond worked 32 years and then planted something they couldn't close. What we carry isn't weight, it's the whole living record. Everything the cartographer forgot to put on the map. Before the map there was red clay. Before the names there were hands that knew this ground. The roots were already here, asking nothing, just growing. Out of road, just growing. Slow dollar comes in slow, and it goes out the same way. And the man who thinks he's managing the arrangement is being managed by the arrangement just as thoroughly. On both ends, entry and exit, the game has always been symmetrical. Yeah. Napoleon Boutro has been on Bourbon Street since '89. And he will tell you he runs something, and in a way he does. But in another way, what he runs has been running him for 6 years. And he thinks he's got 2 more good years before he has an exit plan. The exit plan has been 2 years away since '91. And the game knows this. The game knows where the exit plan lives. The game built the corridor that leads to the exit plan. And the corridor gets longer every time you measure it from inside. Slow dollar on bourbon. The money moves like the heat. Slow dollar on bourbon. You think you're standing still, but the game is moving you the way a current moves a patient swimmer. And the current is old and the swimmer is new, and the current always wins. The town car was $89 a week to rent in 90T. And Napoleon drove it down St. Charles in the afternoon before the night. And he believed what the car allowed him to believe, which is that he was the architect of the arrangement, not the material. That the block was his design and not his assignment. Uncle Clarence told me once that the most dangerous man in the game is the one who thinks he invented it. Napoleon thought he invented it. He did not invent it. The arrangement was here before Napoleon's grandfather was born. And the arrangement will be here after Napoleon is a memory on this block. Oh, slow dollar on bourbon. The money moves like the heat. Slow dollar on bourbon. You think you're standing still. Napoleon drove the town car like the car was a sentence he was writing himself. The game had already finished the sentence before Napoleon found the first word. I will not pretend there was no glamour. The glamour was real. The way money felt in a specific kind of hand at a specific hour of night. The way the block acknowledged you when the acknowledgement was right. These are real things, and real things can still be wrong, and these were both. The women in Napoleon's arrangement carried what they carried, and Napoleon's accounting of what they carried was incomplete. Not deliberately incomplete, genuinely incomplete. Because the game teaches its players to count only one column, and the other column is the one the city keeps in the ledger. The one Napoleon will eventually be handed when the game presents the slow dollar on bourbon. The money moves like the heat. Oh, slow dollar on bourbon. You think you're standing still. The city has Napoleon's page in the ledger, ready for the moment he stops moving. And the city is patient. The city has always been more patient than anyone inside it. By '96, Napoleon was on the bus, not to Memphis, just across town, to wherever the next option was after the arrangement restructured itself without him. The game does not negotiate departures. It simply moves to the next arrangement. And Napoleon on the bus had time to hear what Clarence said in '89. That every arrangement needs 2 things. Somebody who knows the value, and somebody who knows the price. And the tragedy, the specific Southern tragedy, is when one person is required to be both, when the same person holds the value and pays the price. Clarence said this to Napoleon as a warning. Napoleon heard it as a description of the people he managed. It took a bus seat in '96 to understand it was about himself. The Bayou keeps what it keeps, and it doesn't doesn't explain itself to anyone. 3 blocks from the celebration, 3 blocks from the sound. Something else lives in the city after the music goes down. I walk the street at 2 in the morning and the silence follows. Now behind me, beside me, like it belongs to the same block I do. Terrell's Cutlass park system off, and the night is different now. The night is what Memphis always was before the music started. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. It doesn't answer to Tuesday, doesn't answer to the horns on Bill. What it holds winning before the city had a name for what it feels. There's a building on the north side where I grew up, 4 floors in a courtyard that caught everything that fell. Darius lived on the 3rd floor. He was 17 in 90, and I don't talk about what happened on the stairwell in November, but the building knows, the walls absorbed it, the building keeps. That's what Memphis taught me first before it taught me anything. That a city is made of layers, and the deepest ones don't play music, the deepest ones just hold. The alley behind the church on Poplar Avenue. The men who sleep there know things about the code. That the congregation going in on Sunday can't quite access, they pass each other. The men in the alley and the people in the suits, and there is a transaction of avoidance. So practice this choreography. The pastor prays for all of Memphis. I heard him, I believe he means it. But what the alley holds was there before the prayer, and it'll be there after. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. Darius never made it out of the building in November 90. What the stairwell holds won't answer to a prayer or a policy. And I am not here to say it was hopeless. I am not built for hopeless. I am here because Memphis taught me both things at once. The celebration and the thing underneath the celebration. The bass and 2 rails trunk, and the silence when the system powers down. The second line, and what the second line walks past without looking. You cannot love a city honestly and only love its music. You have to love the alley too, not the thing that happens there, but the fact that the people in the alley are part of the city's body. And what happens to the body happens to all of it. Every building, every wall, every stairwell, every November. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. The Bayou keeps what it keeps. And I'm still here after all of it. Still in the city with both hands. What the Bayou keeps, I keep too. That's the deal, that's the whole deal. And the hour before the city wakes up again, when the night is almost done, but not yet done. The Bayou sits at the edge of what Memphis knows about itself. Patient like it always was, like it was here before the city, like it'll be here when the city decides it's finally ready to account for every layer, not just the ones with music. "3 a.m. on St. Bernard, and the city has exhausted its performances. The Cashmere is back on the hanger. The system in Terrell's trunk is quiet. What's left on St. Bernard at 3 is the actual city, not the city performing, not the city explaining itself, the city being exactly what it is at 3. The arrangement costs more at 3 a.m. than it cost at midnight. What you agreed to at 10 looks different under 3 a.m. light, because 10 has the energy of a beginning and 3 is only arithmetic. The arithmetic of what it actually is when the performance is no longer running. What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard holds? What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard holds? Yeah, is the city after the last act, after the ledger catches up with the night, the cost that was never announced when the night was being sold. The woman at the corner, St. Bernard, and Gentilly has a name, but I am gonna call her what she called herself when I asked ready. She said it like a question and an answer in the same breath at the same time, like she wasn't certain if it named where she was or where she was going. And maybe both, maybe that is what ready always means in this city at this hour. She had been in the arrangement for 8 months, which was 4 months longer than the arrangement she agreed to in January. The city has a specific talent for extending what you came to do temporarily, for making the 4-month decision into the 8-month fact, for making the 8-month fact feel like the permanent address. And by 3 a.m. on St. Bernard, she was doing her own accounting in the open air. What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard hold? What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard holds is every plan that got extended past its own expiration into the present tense. What she planned in January and what she is standing in tonight are not the same plan. She had Tamara's number, not Tamara's personally, but the number Tamara was handed in Memphis that goes to Celestine's network. The number that passes between women in the city like a coordinate between ships. She called it at 3:10 a.m. and a woman answered, not Celestine, Celestine's cousin. And the cousin said, come now. Not in the morning at 3:10, come now. When she came, she walked off St. Bernard toward Iberville with what she had, which was not much and was everything that mattered and was enough. I wanna be clear about what the walking was. The walking was the whole story, not the destination. The direction in the city at this hour, a woman choosing the direction is the complete act. The city writes that direction in the ledger, the way it writes everything with full permanence, with no erasure. That direction is now in the ledger. What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard holds? What 3 a.m. on St. Bernard holds is also the moment someone decides which way to walk in the dark. And the walking is what the city enters on your permanent page. By 4 a.m. St. Bernard was just a street again. The arrangement was still running because arrangements do not take the night off. But one person that walked off it, and that walking was registered by the city, by the ledger, by Celestine's cousin on the phone, by me, who was watching from a position I had chosen because the alternative was participating. And I had decided years before on a corner in Houston watching Clarence that I was gonna be a witness and not a player. And the witness is the worst seat at the game and the only one I could take. And it's Celestine's kitchen at 3:45. Tamara was there, from the Greyhound, from the broken zipper bag, still there. And the Ronico was there, from the pharmacy awning on West Time, still there. And the woman from St. Bernard was the third cup of coffee. And Celestine's cousin had gone back to sleep, having done what she needed to do. And the city was writing all of this down.
August in Texas sits on your chest before you open the door, like the heat decided it lives here too. And you're the one paying rent. Mama used to say the Lord made Texas hot, so we know we were strong enough to carry. Uncle Jerome drives the route from Beaumont to Houston every Tuesday. Same road, same toll booth, same cup of gas station coffee going cold. He says the highway don't care what you're carrying, it just asks, can you keep moving? Can you keep moving? Been working since I was 12 in some form of fashion, cutting grass for Mr. Willis 2 blocks over. Later stocking shelves at the grocery on Spur in 1907. Later unloading trucks in the dark before the city woke up. The hands remember every job they ever did. The hands don't forget even when the mind tries to move on. I got a brother who went a different way at 17, and I still think about that intersection like it has a street sign. What the heat teaches you is patience. What the heat teaches you is patience. There's no rushing through a Texas August. You just carry it the way this family carried everything that came before. Mama's youngest is in school now, first in the family. She studies late when the apartment cools down enough to think I drive her to campus on the days the bus don't make the schedule. And I watch her walk through those doors like she owns the building, like the building was always meant to hold someone like her. T-Bone Washington from down the street asked me what I was smiling at. I said I'm watching something I worked for. He understood. He's got a daughter too. The heat teaches you what you're working toward, when everything you're working toward is still becoming. What the heat teaches you is patience. What the heat teaches you is patience. There's no rushing through a Texas August. You just carry it. Mama's youngest carried us all the way to those doors. At the end of the route, Uncle Jerome parks the truck and sits 5 minutes in the quiet before he goes inside. He told me once that 5 minutes is all he asks of the day. Just 5 minutes when nothing is expected. I used to think that was sadness. Now I think it's the most honest thing a man can claim. The right to 5 minutes with nothing pulling at the sleeve. The highway took everything and gave a paycheck, and somehow Jerome kept building anyway. Kept building. What the heat teaches you is patience. What the heat teaches you is patience. There's no rushing through a Texas August. You just carry it. Uncle Jerome carries the route, and the route carries him home. In the late afternoon when the heat finally lets up a little, the whole street breathes different, slower, gentler. Kids come out of wherever kids hide in the Texas summer, and somebody down the block always has music going. Something old, something from before the neighborhood knew any better. And for an hour or two before dark, the weight lift's not gone, just resting. And that rest is enough to go again tomorrow. That rest is how we keep going. That rest is the whole story, if you know how to listen.
The pigeon on the wire at Claiborne and St. Bernard sees everything and tells nothing, which is the correct arrangement for a witness. It has seen the second line come through and the police car come through. And what happens after both of them have passed, and the block is just itself.
This is what lives 3 blocks from the celebration on Beale Street.
This is what Claiborne holds after the
Crowd on Bourbon is still filling up, but the transaction that never made it into anyone's authorized history of this block. The conversation that is 3 words long and means something specific in the dark.
What the pigeon saw on Claiborne.
What the pigeon saw on Claiborne.
It's not for the ceremony, not for the daylight, not for the tour. The ledger the city keeps is not the ledger on display at any museum. Napoleon thought he was managing the city from inside the arrangement, but the city was managing Napoleon the whole time with complete patience. And what the pigeon saw on Claiborne in 90 was Napoleon figuring this out at 2 in the morning on the wrong corner. The arrangement unraveling in real time because the count was short, and the city watching through the pigeon's eye, patient, composed, thorough. The city does not rush the reckoning. The city lets the reckoning travel. The U and Napoleon's reckoning arrived at Claiborne and St. Bernard in November. There were men on this block who were here before Napoleon was a conversation. Who know what the corner hill before Napoleon had a name on Beale Street, and what it held was the same geometry, different faces, same arrangement. The game does not require new material, it only requires new players, and the city supplies them reliably, one after another, in increasingly nice cars. What the pigeon saw on Claiborne.
What the pigeon saw on Claiborne.
With Napoleon's face in the moment, the geometry of the current became legible to him. The same face, the pigeon that's seen on 100 men on this same corner before. The romantics will tell you the game is glamour. I know the song, I know the car, I know what the Cashmere looks like on Beale Street on a Friday. And I am not here to take the Cashmere from the song. I'm here to say the pigeon sees both Beale Street and Claiborne. And the pigeon doesn't distinguish between them by value, only by what they hold. What Beale Street holds on a Friday and what Claiborne holds at 2 a.m. are both true, and the truth has two addresses on the same map.
I was watching from outside the game, and watching is the worst seat, because you see everything. You see the arc before the person inside the arc can see it. You know the ending, because the ending is always the same ending at the same address. And the same ending is this. The city standing on the corner after the player has moved on, patient, unchanged, waiting for the next phase to arrive at the same geometry. And the city will wait because the city has always had more patience than any of us. More patience than Napoleon, more patience than the arrangement, more patience than the song.
What the pigeon song, Claiborne?
What the pigeon saw on Claiborne.
Is the city being exactly what it has always been? Permanent, patient recording, and the player finally understanding that the permanence was never his. By 3 a.m. Napoleon is no longer on Claiborne, and the pigeon is still on the wire at St. Bernard. And the block is exactly what it was before Napoleon arrived on it, and will be exactly what it is when the next face arrives at the same corner. The pigeon does not mourn, pigeons do not mourn. The pigeon witnesses, and the witnessing is what the pigeon does. In the language of the city, the witnessing is everything.
I started this record with a sentence about cartographers and red clay and what the soil remembers. I want to return to it now with different hands. Hands that have been through these 10 stories and know what they held. The roots don't ask permission to grow, but here at the end, here with all of it behind us, I think about what that means for a person, not a root, a person who has to ask permission for almost everything. Billy May's porch is still 3 steps in a rocking chair. Raymond Coates planted something after the mill closed. His youngest is an engineer. Miss Dorothy's granddaughter found the letters, some of them, enough of them. Keisha still knows the long route and the short route, and she chose
what the roots don't ask permission to do.
What the roots don't ask.
What the roots don't ask permission to do
is what we have been doing all along, reaching towards something. Even when the concrete above us said there was nothing there to reach for. Valerie drove 40 minutes for 11 weeks and got what she was owed. Marcus filed 3 times and kept every copy of every form. The photograph on the wall at the Grant Avenue Community Center still has 37 faces looking at a side entrance they were not afraid of. Dolores is at the cafeteria, and her daughter calls every Sunday, and Dardanelle's window still gets the wave, still gets the wave. Terrell's Cutlet still rolls slow down Chelsea Avenue on a Saturday afternoon, and Miss Yvonne's handkerchief is still in the air somewhere.
What the roots don't ask permission to do.
What the roots don't ask.
What the roots don't ask permission to do.
It survived with dignity in a soil that was never prepared for us, and then make something beautiful in that soil anyway. Anyway, I want to say something about Darius before this closes, because somebody should. Darius was 17 and the stairwell in November held something that nobody asked the stairwell to hold. I cannot make that okay. I don't have the language for that. Nobody does. What I can say is that his name belongs in this record, not as a wound, as a presence. It's proof that we are accounting for everything. not just the survival stories, all of it. And the courthouse didn't record the field grandmama was born in, but we did, we kept the record. In the grocery bags, in the long route, in the 11 we commute. In the second line that goes under the highway and out the other side. And Uncle Jerome's 5 minutes of quiet at the end of the route. And the anchor phrase I planted at the top of this record, knowing I would come back to it, knowing what it meant now. The roots don't ask permission to grow. They find a crack in the concrete and they go. They were always going, always going. We were always going, always going. The cartographer never measured how far. Before the next map, there is still red clay. Before the next name, there are still hands that know this ground. The roots were already here when we arrived, and they will be here when we are the ones. Remember, we planted this, we're still planting this. We don't ask permission, we just go.
The rain on Westheimer comes down like it chose this address specifically. Like it has been waiting at this intersection since before she arrived in Houston. She is standing under the awning of the 24-hour pharmacy on Westheimer. And the satin is wet at the hem, and the pocket has been counted twice. Her name is Veronica, and she came from Port Arthur in '92. Because Port Arthur had run out of room for what she needed. She found options in Houston, not the options she planned when she packed, but the options that presented themselves to a woman who needed rent by Friday. And she was practical enough to recognize an option, even when the option was not what she would have chosen in a different life. This is what the rain does to a story like this. This is what the rain does to a story like this. It gets into everything. The Satin, the arithmetic, the question of what's next, and you're standing under and on it, trying to keep dry what cannot be kept dry. Her mother Satin, this is the part nobody asks about, that the satin was her mother's and she wore it because beautiful things are armor. You wear the most beautiful thing you own when you walk into the night, and the night takes what the night takes, and the satin gets wet at the hem. And you stand under the pharmacy awning and you count twice, and the arithmetic of the week assembles itself in the fluorescent light. The Houston rain asks questions. Where are you going? What are you doing? Why? Port Arthur rain just rain. She misses the rain that didn't interrogate. She misses her mother's kitchen, which smelled like the satin before it was hers. She misses the version of the plan that didn't involve this corner or two. Not in a way that immobilizes, in a way that motivates, which is different. Grief as fuel is a specific southern skill, and she has developed it fully. Raymond from down the hall knocked on her door last week. Said there's a woman in New Orleans who helps people get out of arrangements. Not church, not shelter. A woman with a network and a phone and no judgment. Just the one question: are you finished with what you were doing? Veronica wrote the number down on the back of a receipt and put it behind her ID. It is still there. She checked the night before she left the room, because the option being available is its own form of stability. You don't have to use it tonight, it just has to be there.
This is what the rain does to a story like this.
This is what the rain does.
This is what the rain does to a story like this.
Veronica has the number behind the ID. Even the rain can't reach that. The number stays dry when everything else is standing in the weather. But tonight is not the night for the number. Tonight she is under the awning doing the arithmetic and waiting for the rain to decide. The Houston rain is dramatic, but it doesn't hold grudges. It always moves on, and she knows this about Houston rain from 3 years of watching it. And she is patient, because patience is the one skill Port Arthur and Houston agree on. The skill that both cities teach through their weather without being asked. She thinks about New Orleans. She heard something from a woman named Tamara, who passed through Houston recently on her way from Memphis. Tamara said Celestine's coffee was the first warm thing she hadn't paid for in a year. And Veronica has been thinking about that specific sentence for a week. A warm thing she hasn't paid for. What a specific and accurate description of what she wants.
This is what the rain does to a story like this.
This is what the rain
This is
does.
what the rain does to a story like this.
The number behind the ID is dry, and the sentence Tamara said is still in the chest.
The rain does what the rain does.
And Veronica is still here, still counting.
Still here.
By 3, the rain pulls back and the awning is just wet, not necessary. And she steps out into what's left of the weather. And the satin at the hem catches the pharmacy light as she moves. And in that light, for exactly 1 second, it looks like what a mother intended. Like the satin is still doing what a mother bought it to do, which was dignity. And she walks out on West Time with the number behind the ID. And Tamara's sentence about the warm thing in her chest somewhere, which is enough for the night, which is always enough.
On Florida Avenue, before the sun gets serious, Mr. Earl opens the garage with both hands like a sermon. 3 generations of hands that know every engine on this block. And the first car he ever fixed still parks outside his daughter's house. Miss Yvonne sets the chairs out by 7, not because anyone is coming at 7, but because being ready is its own kind of prayer. The neighborhood comes by 9. Some of them carrying food, some of them carrying stories, and she receives both the same way, with both hands open. Her porch faces east, so the morning lands on everything she loves. The plastic flowers she bought at the dollar store on Canal look real enough in that light. And she says, that's what matters, the light, not the flowers. Second line on a Sunday, feel like the whole city remembers. Second line on a Sunday, feels like the whole city breezes. Miss Yvonne ties the handkerchief to her wrist, so every wave is also a flag for everyone she lost. Mr. Joseph tunes his trumpet on the back step. Hasn't played a gig since '92, but the notes still know his name. Kezia from the corner store brings a case of cold water every second line, every parade, every time somebody needs to be seen. The brass loop bends around the corner at Claiborne, and for 3 blocks in either direction, the world becomes what it was supposed to be. Darnell's on the 2nd floor watching from the window. He's been watching since the accident took the knee. And Miss Yvonne looks up every time she passes, waves the handkerchief directly at his window. Always his window. Second line on a Sunday, feels like the whole city remembers. Second line on a Sunday, feels like the whole city breathes. Miss Yvonne's eyes are closed now. She's somewhere between here and there, following the sound of what was always ours. They'll try to rezone this sometime next year. Mr. Earl already got the notice about the garage, and Miss Yvonne got a letter she doesn't talk about, but the second line doesn't negotiate. It goes where it goes on the schedule. It keeps every neighborhood it touches, remembers what it felt like to belong to something that chose you back. To stand in the street with strangers who are not strangers, to wave a handkerchief at nobody and everybody. This is what they mean when they say culture, not the
posters in the airport. The actual thing, Mr. Earl in his hand, Miss Yvonne in the east facing porch, Darnell in the window when the wavy nose is for him. Kezia in the cold water, nobody asked her to bring the bread. It's going around the corner at Claiborne, and the whole city breathing like one lung. Like it always knew how to do this, like it never needed permission to keep going. Second line on a Sunday, feels like the whole city remembers. Second line on a Sunday, feels like the whole city breathes. Everything Mr. Earl fixed is still out there running. And Miss Yvonne's handkerchief is still in the air. Still in the air. On Florida Avenue, the sun takes his time. Mr. Earl closes the garage the same way he opened it, like a sermon. Miss Yvonne takes the chairs in slowly. She's in no hurry. Tomorrow we'll need them too.
Before the sun comes up, Memphis makes its accounting.
And the accounting is not a quiet administrative process. This city does not process its debts in offices. It processes them on corners at 4 a.m. on Union Avenue, when the music is still technically running.
We don't go quietly. Memphis does not do quiet in the dark.
We settle our accounts at the volume the moment requires. And the moment on Union Avenue at 4 requires a specific volume. And Devant on the corner knows exactly what volume that is. The confrontation at Union Avenue at 4 a.m. is between what was promised before the Friday started and what was delivered after the Friday had run its course. And the delivery was short, and the shortfall is not abstract, it is numbered. And Devant has been running this corner for 2 years, and the 2 years cost something that is now being presented, not as paperwork, as a body on this corner in the last hour before light. Because Memphis issues its invoices in presence, not in paper. We don't go quietly. Memphis does not do quiet in the dark. We settle our accounts at the volume the moment requires. Zavante knows the math, he has always known the math. At 4 a.m. the math cannot be deferred to a more convenient hour. He knew the geometry was unsustainable when he entered it. He entered anyway because 1990 T in Memphis had a short menu, and the geometry was on the menu, and the other options were narrower. So we entered and he ran it, and it ran him in return equally as it does. And now the corner at 4 a.m. is settling the symmetry. I wanna say something about the Cashmere from a few blocks over on Bayou, because it is the same night. Beale Street and Union Avenue are one night, and what happens on Beale at midnight, and what happens on Union at 4 are not separate stories. They are the same story. In 2 registers, the celebration and the reckoning run on the same calendar. The same Friday that Harold Laquanda's crew on Bayou hosts Devante's accounting on Union before the sun gets involved. Go quietly. Memphis does not do quiet in the dark. We settle our accounts at the volume the moment requires. Beale Street and Union Avenue are the same night with different clocks, and both clocks are accurate. That is what Memphis knows that nobody else does. After the reckoning, Avante's still on the corner, recalibrated, not gone. This is important. The reckoning is not an ending, it is a calibration. The game adjusts its expectations to match the reality of the delivery, and the adjustment happens loud, and the adjustment is witnessed by the pigeon on the wire at Claiborne. If nothing else, the pigeon sees this just as it sees everything else, without judgment, completely. And the sun starts coming up over Midtown, and the light hits Union Avenue when the corner reads different. And the Cashmere looks different at dawn than it did at midnight. That is not metaphor, that is just light, that is just what dawn does to everything it touches. Devante stands in the dawn light, knowing what he knows now, which is more than he knew at midnight, and less than he will know by noon. And the city writes this in the ledger too, the before and the after, both entries. We don't go quietly. Memphis does not do quiet in the dark. We settle our accounts at the volume the moment requires. And the sun is saying something now, and Devante is in the process of hearing it. Memphis time, running on its own clock, as it always has.
Name for it never surrendered. Name for it never fail. You can read what the papers wrote, but tell you what the papers couldn't tell. Every liver that broke, every family that scattered, every name displaced. The name brought back this culture in a bag and carried it from state to state. We bounce back, we always bounce back. We bounce back from the bottom of the map. Every corner of the South knows what the Ninth Ward knows. You can relocate the people, but the people carry where they go. Tremay held on, St. Claude held on. The Lower Nine held. Every neighborhood they rode off, every street they said was beyond the spell of coming back, or rebuilding, or returning, or reclaiming. Miss Yvonne came back to Claiborne, and that in itself is a proclamation. She carried the handkerchief through the diaspora and back. She brought the second line with it never unpacked. We bounce back, we always bounce back. We bounce back from the bottom of the map. Miss Yvonne's handkerchief still moves above the crowd. What the Ninth Ward built before the water can still be found. Listen, the whole South knows this feeling. Displacement is not a NOLA story, it's a Southern chorus. From the refinery families in Texas to the highway there they Claiborne. From the courthouse that lost grandmama's paperwork to the mill that closed on Thursday. This is the same story told in different accents and different zip codes. What they did to the Ninth Ward, they did to the county line in Georgia. What they did to Claiborne, they did to the boulevard in every southern city that had something worth building over. But we bounce back. But we bounce back. The whole South bouncing back. Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Louisiana. Every family that scattered carried the roots into the new soil. So this is what I need you to understand about the South. We have been relocated before. We have been redirected before. Had our oaks cut, our buildings condemned, our routes rerouted. Had our courthouse forms lost, our benefits processed 11 months late. Had our children in stairwells that shouldn't have had to hold what they held. And after all of that, and I mean all of that, the second line still goes. It turns the corner at Claiborne, it bends the brass around the pillar. And the handkerchief is still in the air. Still in the air. Still in the air. Still in the air. Still bounce back. We always bounce back. We bounce back. From the bottom of the map. This is the whole South in one line going down one street. Everything we carried, everything we kept, everything we kept, everything we kept, everything we are. Ninth Ward never surrendered, and neither did the county in Texas where the heat sits on your chest. And neither did the griot on the porch in Georgia with the anchor phrase. And neither did the men in the alley or the widow in the kitchen. Or Darius. I say Darius because somebody should. Or Uncle Jerome on the truck route. Or Dolores at the cafeteria. Or Mrs. Henderson with the grocery bags. Or Keisha on the long route. We are all of this. Every city, every county, every bottom of the map. And we bounce, and we bounce, and we bounce, and we keep bouncing. Yeah. The morning finds some things the night could not reach. Not many. The night is thorough, but some. The coffee in Celestine's kitchen at 7. The broken zipper bag with everything that matters still inside it. Tamara woke up in a room that was not the arrangement, and the first thing she did was breathe without the weather reading. Without the room temperature calculation that the game trains into you over months. Just breathe, which is what you do when the room is safe and the door is yours.
What the morning found untouched.
What the morning found untouched is what the game could not reach, even on its most thorough night. The breath without calculation. The room that is just a room without a cost attached. Celestin makes coffee the same way every morning, regardless of who is in the kitchen.
3 scoops and a pinch of chicory.
The way her mother did on Iberville, the people in the kitchen change, but the coffee does not change, which is its own testimony to what stays when everything around it has shifted. Tamara has been here 14 weeks now and knows the coffee. Veronica arrived 11 days ago and still holds the cup like it might be taken back. And the woman from St. Bernard is on her second morning and is still mostly quiet. And Celestin treats all three the same way she treats the coffee, consistent. I wanna return to the anchor freight now that the night is behind us. The city keeps its own ledger. I said this first over Mr. Earl's Cordovan shoes. I said it as a fact about the game. As the game's accounting system, the city entering you in its ledger from the moment you showed it, knowing the hour. And by that I meant something sinister. The city recording what you were doing, recording your page in the arrangement and keeping it permanently. But what I did not understand when I first said it was that the ledger is not the game's ledger. The game does not keep the ledger. The city keeps the ledger. And the city is not the game. The city is older than the game by centuries. The game is just one of many arrangements that are run inside the city. And the ledger keeps all of them, the arrangements and the walking off them both. Celestin's kitchen is in the ledger, and Napoleon's cutlass is in the ledger. Tamara's Greyhound is in the ledger, and Clarence's sentence is in the ledger. And the woman from St. Bernard walking off the corner at 3:15 a.m. is in the ledger, in the same ink as everything else.
What the morning found untouched.
What the morning found untouched is the ledger itself, which was never the game's. It was always the city's. And the city records the choosing just as permanently as the being chosen. Napoleon is on a bus, I have said this before, going somewhere across the city. And on the bus he is finally hearing what Clarence said in '89, that every arrangement needs somebody who knows the value and somebody who knows the price. And the tragedy is when one person has to hold both. And Clarence said this to Napoleon as instruction for managing others. And Napoleon understood it as instruction for managing others. And only on the bus at 41 years old does he understand that he was both, that he always was both, that the arrangement always knew this and collected from him accordingly for years, for 6 years of 90T to 99. And what is left after the collection is the understanding, which is the most expensive thing the game sells, and the only thing worth the price.
What the morning found untouched.
What the morning found untouched is Napoleon on the bus hearing Clarence finally, and that hearing is in the ledger too. The city keeps what the morning finds. It keeps everything. It always has. Outside Celestin's window on Iberville, the city is beginning its day. The pharmacy sign is still on, it never goes off. Mr. Earl's Cordovan shoes will walk past it again tonight, because the game does not take weeknights off. And Miss Celestin will be at the window reading the grammar of the corner, in the same chair, at the same hour, with the same 3 scoops of chicory. Because that is what Celestin does. She keeps the coffee and the window and everything the morning brings through a door. And Tamara's cup is warm, and Veronica's cup is warm, and the woman from St. Bernard is starting to hold a cup differently. And the city is writing all of this in its ledger, and the ledger is not the game's, and never was. The city keeps its own ledger, and what it keeps, keeps.
The form asks for a birth certificate. The form doesn't know that grandmama was born in a field, not in a hospital, in a field in August in Alabama. And the midwife who caught her didn't have a stamp.
What the courthouse didn't record. What the courthouse didn't record.
It's the whole architecture of how we survived anyway.
They say the system is colorblind, but the system was built by people who could see just fine. Every form I feel is a negotiation between my actual life and somebody's idea of what a life should look like on paper. Valerie James drove 40 minutes to this office every week for 11 weeks. A job she couldn't lose, a bus she couldn't miss, a child with a fever. And the answer every time was come back with the right document. The document they hadn't told her she needed until that morning.
What the courthouse didn't record. What the courthouse didn't record.
Valerie's 11-week commute, the thing she did to keep the lights on. What it cost to ask for what you owed in a building that wasn't built for you. There's a photograph in the community center on Grant Avenue, taken in 1963. 37 people standing outside this building, the same building. Different signs, same steps, same door, except 37 people were told to use the side entrance. And in the photograph, you can see the side entrance. And you can see what 37 faces look like when they understand exactly what is being communicated before a single word is said. We carry this knowledge in the body, not in the mind. The mind forgets, adapts, rationalizes, but the body remembers the side entrance. The body feels the way to which door you're supposed to use. Marcus Lee filled out the same form 3 times, because each time it was returned with a different reason. Not rejected, returned, there is a difference. One says no, one says try again until you stop trying. And Marcus kept trying because his grandmother didn't drive 40 miles to a courthouse in 1947 for him to stop.
What the courthouse didn't record. What the courthouse didn't record.
Marcus kept filing because the filing was the testimony. Every paper a proof of presence. We were here.
We were here.
I want to be clear about something. I am not angry in a way that burns things down. I am angry in a way that builds very carefully and checks every corner for what was missing. The way grandmama checked her field-born hands against every document until the document finally had to admit she existed. The courthouse didn't record the field, but we did. In the way we show up to fill the forms, in the way Valerie drove 40 minutes for 11 weeks, in the way Marcus filed 3 times and kept the copies, in the way I write this down so the archive is somewhere. The courthouse is not the only place a thing can be true.
What the courthouse didn't record. What the courthouse didn't record
is the testimony that survived the form in the building in the years. We kept the record ourselves. We always kept the record ourselves.
The steps outside
are the same steps.
The door is the same door.
And we walk through it knowing everything the floor remembers.
And we still walk through it. And we still fill the form.
And we still keep the copies. That is the whole story. The whole long undefeated story.
The Greyhound leaves Memphis at 3:15 in the morning. And she is on it with everything she owns in a bag with a broken zipper. Between Tennessee and Louisiana, there are 8 hours of darkness. And she has 8 hours to decide what she is arriving as, not what she is leaving. She knows that already with full clarity. She is leaving the arrangement on bill that ran her 8 months past its end date. She is leaving the 3rd floor room that had a window that faced the wrong direction. She is leaving the man whose sentences always started and ended with himself. She is leaving this on the 3:15 Greyhound, and she is not looking back.
What the Greyhound carries southbound
After midnight,
What the Greyhound carries southbound
after midnight, is every person in the middle of choosing what they arrive as. The bus does not care about the leaving. It only moves toward the destination. Yeah. Her name is Tamara and she is 23. And before you build your picture from the 23, let me say what I know. Tamara could read a room faster than anyone I have sat next to anywhere. She knew weather, not sky weather, human weather, the kind that changes rooms. She could feel a room's temperature shift before anyone moved a single muscle. That is not a gift from God, that is a gift from a school nobody applied to. The school of being in rooms where reading weather is survival. And the school is expensive, and Tamara paid for it, and she knows exactly what she paid. What the Greyhound carries southbound after midnight. What the Greyhound carries southbound after midnight. It's Tamara taking the skills with her, every survival skill, all of them. The ones the arrangement taught and charged for, she keeps those too. The man across the aisle is asleep with his mouth open, and she is watching Tennessee become Mississippi through the window. And she is thinking about what she heard about a woman named Celestine on Iberville, who takes people in, no questions except one. Are you finished with what you were doing? And if the answer is yes, there is a room and coffee in the morning. She heard this from a woman in Memphis who had her own Greyhound behind her, who arrived at Iberville 2 years ago and left 14 months later on different terms, on terms she had negotiated for herself. Which is what Celestine's kitchen teaches, not salvation, negotiation, the practical geography of what's next. I wanna be precise about what the other side means in this context, not rescue, reposition, which is its own mercy when mercy is all you are asking. Tamara is not asking to be saved. She is asking for a room with a window that faces the right direction, and 8 hours on the Greyhound to decide where she arrives at. What the Greyhound carries southbound after midnight. What the Greyhound carries southbound after midnight. It's Tamara deciding mile by mile, every mile a word, writing the sentence of next, and the sentence is being written in the dark between Memphis and Louisiana. In Hattiesburg, she buys a candy bar from the station vending machine. It cost the last dollar in her left pocket. She still has 20 in the right. She eats it in the fluorescent light and thinks about Celestine's coffee, which she has never tasted, but which her mind has already decided is warm. Which is what the mind does when it is rewriting itself. It finds the warmth first. It locates the destination's comfort before the bus arrives at the destination. And arrives already choosing, already in the new sentence. At 11 p.m. the bus pulls into New Orleans, and Tamara walks with the broken zipper bag to Iberville Street. And Celestine is at the window, not watching for Tamara specifically, watching the corner the way she always does, reading the grammar. But when she sees the bag with the broken zipper, she knows the grammar of that too. And the light is on, and the door is open, and the coffee is exactly what the mind promised.
Money comes slow in this county, and mercy comes slower still. In between the two of them, you build a life out of what's left when both of them keep you waiting. 3 months behind on the truck payment, and the man at the dealership said he understood, but understanding doesn't move the calendar, and the calendar doesn't care what anybody understands. My brother, the one I told you about, he made a different calculation. At 17 he looked at the math, and the math didn't add up the honest way. I'm not saying he was wrong, I'm saying I understand the arithmetic. When slow money and slower mercy are the only options you offer, some people start doing math the city didn't teach them. This is what slow does to a family. This is what slow does to a family. When everything you need is always 3 weeks out. The Everybody learns to live in 3 weeks out, and that becomes the house. Dolores Watkins from the church on 5th. Her husband worked a refinery for 16 years. Foreman caught her on a Thursday, said he didn't make it home, and the benefits took 11 months to process. 11 months. She made decisions I don't have the right to judge, because I wasn't the one making them in that kitchen on that Thursday. After that phone call with 3 children listening, Dolores is working the school cafeteria now, still in the same county. She tithes every Sunday. She says it's not about God hearing, it's about the practice of giving something when everything's being taken.
This is what slow does to a family.
This is what
slow does to a family.
Dolores gave something every week to prove to herself she still had something to give. The practice was the prayer, not the answer. The practice. I tried to explain to somebody from outside what Texas looks like from the inside. They had a picture, boots and oil and space and freedom. I said there's 2 Texases and one of them doesn't have a picture. One of them is the county where the refinery paid the wages, and the accident didn't pay the family. And 11 months was just a system doing what it was designed to do when the family kept going. Because families in this county keep going, not because it's easy, because there is no other configuration. You keep going or you don't, and everybody we know keeps going. And my brother made it out the other side eventually, not unscathed. No one makes it out unscathed, but he's got a daughter now who asks him questions he didn't know how to ask, and he answers them carefully, like a man who knows the cost of wrong answers. Like a man who did the math the hard way and arrived somewhere real.
This is what slow does to a family.
This is what
slow does to a family.
My brother did the math, the hard math, and carried the answer home. And his daughter asked questions he never knew he deserved to be asked. The truck payment eventually got sorted. Uncle Jerome helped. 3 weeks felt like 3 years, but we got through the 3 weeks. And Dolores' kids are older now. The oldest is in cosmetology school in Houston, and she calls her mama every Sunday after church. And Dolores says she's proud, and you believe her, you believe every word of it, because pride earned the slow way. The way this county earns everything. It's the kind of pride that doesn't need to announce itself. It just stands in the room, and everybody in the room knows. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. The night on Bourbon Street, after the tourists go home, belongs to itself again. The real bourbon starting at 1:15. Not a different city, the same city exhaling, taking off the performance and becoming the thing underneath. Mr. Earl puts on the Cordovan shoes he bought in '91, polished like the night itself owed him something back. He moves down Decatur at his own speed, not rushed, deliberate. The walk communicating everything before he opens his mouth, which he rarely does and never first. The city keeps its own ledger, and the ledger doesn't need your signature to enter you in it. You entered by showing up, by knowing the hour, by walking right. What the ledger keeps is not what the daylight city thinks it keeps. Miss Celestine sits by the window on Iberville at 12:30, not watching the street, reading it. 30 years of watching this same corner teaches you the grammar. You learn which footstep means what before the face clears the lamppost. She knows Mr. Earl's shoes before she knows it's
Mr. Earl. The Cordovan leather picks up the pharmacy sign on the corner. She says the shoes always arrive before the man does. That the game is in the walk, always been in the walk. And the city confirms this every night to anyone willing to sit still. The city keeps its own ledger, and the ledger doesn't need your signature to enter you in it. Miss Celestine's been reading this corner since before the ledger had your page. She knows the grammar, and the grammar knows the back. On bourbon, the tourists are gone by one, and the real bourbon starts at 1:15. Lafayette Johnson walks the block at his measured pace. Been walking the same block since '88 without variation. He knows which doorways carry which conversations. He knows which shadow means business and which shadow means standing, and which man approaching from which direction at which hour means what specific thing in the language you learned on this block. Every block in the city has a language, and you don't learn it from books. You learn it by being here long enough to let the block teach you its grammar. And once you know it, you are in the ledger, and the ledger is permanent. That's what nobody tells you at the beginning. The city keeps its own ledger, and the ledger doesn't need your signature to enter you in it. Lafayette's been in the ledger since '88 and doesn't think about it anymore. The city entered him the first night, and that night never ended. The brass from 3 blocks over means the club is still running, which means the musicians have the late set, and the night is not peaked. And somewhere between the brass and the Cordovan leather on Decatur, the city is being what it was before anyone named it anything. Before the museum, before the tour, before the brochure said authentic. Mr. Earl knows what authentic feels like on a sidewalk at midnight. And it doesn't need the word, it's just the walk, it's just the knowing the hour. The shoes that announce the man, and the city writing it all down in the ledger. Nobody asked to be in. On St. Claude, after the second line goes quiet, the night finds its second register. Not loud, quieter than you expected, present without announcing itself. The kind of presence that doesn't need volume to be understood. 2 people at the corner of St. Claude and Elysian Fields, not raising their voices. The city doesn't require volume after midnight, just proximity, just the language of knowing, just the code. And Mr. Earl's Cordovan shoes, holding the whole negotiation in their shine. The city keeps its own ledger, and the ledger doesn't need your signature to enter you in it. And by 3 a.m. every page is full, every name accounted for. The city writes what it writes, and it keeps what it keeps.
There's a code in this that predates anything you read in a book. Runs through the South like a highway. You don't invent it, you find it. My Uncle Clarence used to say every arrangement needs 2 things. Somebody who knows the value, and somebody who knows the price. I'm not here to teach you the game. I'm here to account for what I saw, what I witnessed moving through Houston in the 90s. What the slow money looked like when the month was long and the work was short, and the arrangement sat on the corner, dialing it home and lock it on both. Clarence drove in '86, cut just kept it like a testament. Said the car's the first thing the street reads on you. Everything had to say something right. Said everything communicates, and communication has to be consistent, or the street reads contradiction and inconsistency in this context doesn't get a second chance. What it meant took me years to understand and fool that in this world every detail is a word in a sentence, and if your sentence contradicts itself, you become illegible. And illegible in this context is more than just inconvenient.
What the arrangement asks of you. What the arrangement asks of you.
It's not what you think from outside looking at it. It's the code behind the code. The agreement behind the agreement. I watched the dialing corner for 6 months before I understood the geometry. Watched how Clarence moved through it, how he acknowledged without acknowledging, how we knew who was serious and who was performing seriousness. And the difference between those two things is survival. The men who were performing got sorted out eventually by the game itself. The game is patient that way, it lets you perform for a while. Then it presents you with a situation where the performance fails, and the failure is the test. And most men fail it the same way.
What the arrangement asks of you.
What the arrangement asks of you.
What the arrangement asks of you.
It's consistency. And consistency is the hardest thing in the life that's inconsistent. Clarence kept that 86 Cutlass spotless because the car was a scent.
I will not pretend it was beautiful across the board. Parts of it had the beauty of a system, the internal logic of it. The way a clock is beautiful because every piece knows its function, but clocks don't have women in them, and this did. And the women in this arrangement carry what they carry, and the ledger of that carrying was never settled in any conversation I was present for. I was young then and I understood less than I thought, but I understood enough to know the ledger was not balanced. And that the most charismatic account of this arrangement still has a column nobody wants to reconcile at the end. What the arrangement asks of you.
What the arrangement asks of you.
What the arrangement asks of you.
Is that you acknowledge the debt eventually, even if the acknowledgement comes late. And it always comes, because the city keeps its own ledger, always has. On Dollar Street in August, the heat sat on everything like a decision, and the arrangement ran on Houston time. Patient, slow, unrushed. Clarence moved through it with full knowledge of what it was, or so I thought. Years later, I understood he also paid eventually, that the arrangement collects from everyone inside it. Not just the women, from everyone differently, but everyone. The slow money comes and the slow money goes, and what it leaves behind is not what any of us imagined holding. When we were 22, watching Uncle Clarence walk to his Cutlass like the street had been installed specifically for the purpose of his stride. The arrangement is still on that corner in some form. The faces change, the code stays, the city writes it all down, and the ledger doesn't balance itself, it just keeps filling. They built the highway where the oak trees were, and nobody asked the oak trees, and nobody asked the people who live beneath the oak trees. And now there's a highway and a shadow where the shade used to be. Miss Yvonne remembers Claiborne before the concrete came. She was 9 years old and the boulevard was a cathedral. Oak trees so thick the sky was just a rumor above. People selling sweet potato pie from folding tables on Sunday. The men playing dominoes in the shade all afternoon. And the brass, always the brass, coming from somewhere down the street. What Claiborne used to hold,
before the year they poured the concrete. It's the kind of thing that lives in the body longer than any document. What they took when they built that highway didn't fit on any form. Her mother said the engineers came in the summer, said the city needed progress and progress needed room. Said this was the most efficient route. Efficient for whom? She always asked, efficient for whom? Her mother's magnolia tree came down in September. She wasn't home when it happened. She came back to a stump in a business card from a contractor. And that was the negotiation, a business card. Miss Yvonne is older now, and the highway is still there. She walks under it sometimes to get to where she's going. And she keeps her eyes on the ground the way you do when the ceiling is something that was put there over your life. Mr. Joseph brought his trumpet out once, played in the underpass for an hour on a Tuesday. He said the acoustics were good, and they were, but the song came out different under concrete than it did under oak, and he knew the difference. Everybody there knew the difference. What Claiborne used to hold. What Claiborne used to hold. Before the year they poured the concrete. Miss Yvonne still carries the Sunday pies in the body somewhere. What they took when they built that highway echoes under every step she takes. But here's the thing about what survived. The second line still goes down. Claiborne still turns the corner at St. Bernard, still bends the brass around the pillar of the overpass. And Miss Yvonne still ties the handkerchief to her wrist and waves at Darnell's window as she passes. And the community center is still there, still holding names. And the sweet potato pie recipe still exists in somebody's kitchen. They took the oak trees and they left the knowledge. They took the boulevard and left the brass. They took the shade and left the people who knew how to make shade. And the second line goes where the second line goes, under the highway, through the shadow, and out the other side. What Claiborne used to hold. Before the year they poured the concrete, the brass still bends around the pillar, still turning the corner at St. Bernard. What they poured above us never reached what we kept below. In the evenings when the traffic lets up and the sound changes under the overpass, sometimes Miss Yvonne stands there and closes her eyes, and she says she can almost hear it. The old Claiborne, the one that lived under the oak trees before the concrete came. And that almost is not sadness. She is clear about this. That almost is a form of keeping, a way of saying, I know what was here. I know what it felt like to stand in this shade. And I am still standing here. Still here, still here, still here.
South of the line, we do it different. Hey, south. South of the Mason-Dixon, the Cashmere hits different in the summer heat. Every fabric is a statement, and we make our statements of what we bring to the occasion. And tonight the occasion is the whole city coming out to Beale Street. And the occasion does not accept half measures, never has, never will. Memphis out the night, Beale Street full, everyone dressed for the reason. You can smell the Cashmere and the cologne 2 blocks before you see the crowd. This is what they mean when they say the South knows how to arrive. We do not show up, we arrive. There is a specific and important difference. South of the line, we do it different. South of the line, we arrive. South of the line, the Cashmere costs what it costs, and we carry that cost proud. Every mink, every gator boot, every fitted on Beale Street tonight. There's somebody's argument about what they built and where they earned the right to stand. DJ cutting at the corner of Beale and 3rd, whole block feeling it. From barristers to rum boogie, everybody moving in one direction. Jerome has the corner on lock, now the Houston Jerome, I'm Memphis Jerome. 6 deep, the Cashmere is coordinated, deliberate, a collective sin. It's about belonging here. He has been doing this Friday for 4 years, and this is the best one. He will say this next Friday too. That is what the Beale Street Friday does to you. It makes every week feel like the best week.
Street on a Friday, and that alternative does not interest Jerome.
South of the line,
We do it different.
south of the line, we ride.
South of the line, the Cashmere costs what it costs, and we carry that cost proud.
Yeah. Jerome's corner at Bill and Third is making the argument that this block is ours, and nobody on this block on this Friday is in a position to disagree. LaQuanda drove from Whitehaven for exactly it is. She does this every week. 5 of a crew in one car, matching energy, not matching clothes. The distinction matters. The music, the block, the Cashmere, picking up the Bill Street light after midnight. She is not here to negotiate her presence. She is here to occupy it fully. And the occupation of this corner is as legitimate as anything that happened in daylight. More legitimate than some things that happened in daylight. She would tell you this, and she would say it with the anger, just this fact, which is the most southern way to deliver a fact. The way Celestine reads the corner without raising a voice. And Terrell had the system in the 89 Cutlass Supreme on the side street. 412s that know every lyric on Beale Street tonight. Before the track ends, he drives slow down the block, not rushing. The pace is the point, the bass hitting before the car is visible. Announcing, which is the southern way. You arrive before you arrive, the bass arrives first. South of the line,
We do it different.
south of the line, we ride.
South of the line, the Cashmere costs what it costs, and we carry that cost proud.
LaQuanda and Terrell and Jerome are making the argument in real time right now. That below the Mason-Dixon, we know exactly what Friday was invented for.
There is a version of this that certain people will want to manage. There is a version of this that certain committees will want to study. And then there is the version we are living in, which is Friday on Beale Street, which is being alive and loud and dressed for the exact frequency of this moment, which is the Cashmere and the 12s and the DJ and the crowd, and LaQuanda who drove from Whitehaven, and Jerome who has the corner, and Terrell doing what the South has always done with a Friday night worth showing up for.
South of the line,
We do it different.
south of the line, we arrive. South of the line,
The Cashmere costs what it costs, and we carry that cost proud, and we bring the full cost to Beale Street on a Friday and call it home.
south of the line, the only zip code that ever made sense.
Memphis bitches don't sleep on a Tuesday. Memphis don't sleep up, don't sleep up, don't sleep up, don't sleep. Memphis don't sleep on a Tuesday. Memphis don't sleep up, don't sleep up, don't sleep up, don't. Memphis don't sleep on a Tuesday. Memphis don't sleep when the horns hit Beale Street at midnight. Every night of the week, this city got a heartbeat that don't need permission to pound. You feel it in the ground when you step off the bus in this town. We ride, we don't apologize for the bass. We ride from North Memphis to Whitehaven, we take up space. Every corner got a speaker, every block got a sound. Memphis music is a language and we speak it loud. Southside moving, Beale Street alive. North Memphis, Whitehaven, Midtown, we survive and we thrive. DJ spinning at the block party, everybody out. When the trunk rattles windows, that's what Memphis is about. We ride, we don't apologize for the bass. We ride from North Memphis to Whitehaven, we take up space. Every dollar in the trunk speakers, every dollar on the sound. When you come to Memphis for the first time, it's the bass you feel first in the ground. Terrell got the system in the 89 Cutlass Supreme. 412s in the trunk and the whole street knows what that means. He drives slow down Chelsea Avenue on a Saturday afternoon. Not rushing, never rushing. The pace is part of the tune. Lashonda's out on the corner with 2 of her cousins. They do this every week. It's been since they were 12. Already dozens of summers spending this same spot, doing the same ritual. The car goes by the bass, it's the chest. That feeling is spiritual. Southside moving, Beale Street alive. North Memphis, Whitehaven, Midtown, we survive and we thrive. The horns hit at midnight and the city starts to breathe. Memphis got its own clock and it runs on Memphis time. Believe Memphis don't sleep on a Tuesday. Memphis don't sleep when everything you built came from the bottom of the deep. The city raised its children on the sound and the bounce. Tell me what you carrying in that trunk. Tell me what the bass amounts. We don't forget where the music came from. These streets fed the studio that fed the world. From the garage recording to the clubs on Bill. Everything Memphis gave, they never gave it back, but we kept making it real. New generation on the corner with the phone speakers bumping. What granddad played on the system to rails driving around in. Every generation adds a layer to the sound. Memphis music is geological, built from the ground up, from the ground. Moving, Beale Street culture, not the museum, the street. Memphis don't sleep on a Tuesday. Memphis don't sleep. You think you know this city? Walk with us one night and we'll see. This city got a story that the tourist brochure skips, but the bass in the trunk knows every chapter. Knows every eclipse. Went to rail parks, the cutlass at the end of the night, and the system powers down and the block gets quiet. The silence is just Memphis.